Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds, hanging out with all these nerds.
I'm Ryan.
Ted.
Brian. And this is Brian.
And this is Brian. Brian Feister, our special guest from Open Legend RPG.
And today we're just going to talk about the post-mortem of getting to try out Open Legend.
If you want to jump down the description below, you can sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter. It's a great way to get gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
So we just played our first game. The session probably ran, about 4 hours, something like that. And, basically we didn't know any of the rules going in, and we were like, hey, Brian, just run the game. We'll tell you what we want to do. You tell us if we can do that, and, which dice to drop. And I feel like it went pretty well. There's two core mechanics that I would like to point out after having played, and I really like the exploding dice. Yeah. If you roll max on a die, you get to keep rolling until you no longer roll max. And we've seen that used to quite interesting effect during the actual gameplay.
In our recorded gameplay, we saw multiple examples of a die exploding more than twice.
Yeah, and we've seen.
Yep. There was triple 20s rolled. Yeah, I rolled triple 20s. The best part is it was like on a relatively inconsequential thing comparatively to other instances in which. So unfortunately,
well, it was good.
Yeah,
it was good because I allowed it to bend the plot in a way that I hadn't planned.
Right.
So because it was so high,
and a player intrusion in the narrative.
Yeah, and also just to give him the MVP. I mean, he rolled 320s, so 1 in 8,000. So that's pretty good odds.
Magical, yeah.
It's pretty magical. And then on top of it.
I think it's more magical that you know the odds.
That's true. Yeah.
Never tell him the odds.
Never tell him the odds.
Well,
but 70 is like the tie for the highest I've ever seen rolled, and I've been playing this game for a
couple of years.
For a couple of years, all the time. So
yeah, the odds are not in your favor for that roll.
What I find comical is he wound up rolling 4 d20s and a d8 in total. And it exactly tied with your highest. You said you've never seen above a 70.
Yep.
So I find it amusing that in the playtest he didn't meet it. He didn't get close. He got it exactly.
I know. It's so funny.
It's pretty wild.
So the other aspect that I greatly enjoy is the fact that your attack roll is essentially your damage roll as well.
Yep.
You have static defenses like we've seen in other games,
but they also count as damage reduction against that attack roll.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, they're exactly that. Like whatever you do above that number is your damage.
Yep.
Unless it's an effect where
right,
and resist the effect.
And the Banes were interesting that happened if you did a 10 over to create basically what would have been like, say, because I see there's a little bit of like almost like a 4E inflicting statuses type of thing.
Sure.
But it's kind of baked into just if you do a tremendous amount of damage that could occur.
Yeah.
Or you could just do an effect, like you could be attacking to make an effect happen and not necessarily damage, which is pretty cool. So there's some flexibility and some interesting choices there.
Yeah, one of the things that about that, because I think that you're right on with that, just I like to point out is the fact that, with some of the status effect juggling stuff, it can sort of hinder the game sometimes. But the interesting thing here is that because it only happens on an exceptional success, you don't have to always be managing those status effects, right? Because you don't have 10 damage happen every round, whereas in a more 4E type, you kind of have those secondary effects always active, right? Or they can be.
And then, other things that came into play too, though, we actually happen to be lucky enough to have a character in the game that could counter those effects.
Right. Yeah.
One at a time or multiple at a time if they made a good enough roll.
Yeah. Which other than that 70, my rolling was not hot for the session, so I did not feel confident.
Yeah, it was unfortunate.
So the game we played is kind of steampunk, but it really did have a very high fantasy feel to it.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a mix of magic and technology. That part was fun. The exploration part of the new world and being strangers on this distant planet was really cool. Coming through the gate, we didn't get to experience a lot of the setting, but we did get a little bit of it, and it's interesting. So we can't wait to see what comes of that after
absolutely
after John Wicks, Ed Greenwood, and Matt Mercer have gotten a hold of it. Plus, many other others
contributors.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm super excited. Yeah, I mean, in case anybody's wondering, Matt Mercer was real passionate about the dragon. There's a spirit that's like spirit of the land that's a dragon, and he's going to be working on that among other things. John Wick's going to be doing like a group of renegade airship pirates that have commandeered a military vessel and have their own, and they can be encountered at different places in the world and stuff like that. So those are some examples of
that's really cool.
things that are. Ed Greenwood wrote the overview for Schlechtenberg, so like, you know, I'll probably tease something like that around the Kickstarter where you'll be able to read like the Schlechtenberg, you know, a snippet of it by Ed Greenwood and stuff like that.
Well,
Go ahead, Ted.
I really like the concept of character creation, and we didn't actually get to make our own characters. We just chose from some of the pre-gens that you made.
Yep.
But just the core concept of, all right, I'm going to put the things where I want it.
Yep.
And then based off of that, I'm going to describe what my character is, and you really do have the ability to put points everywhere.
Yep.
So I
So you guys know, like, it's a point buy system.
Right.
You know, you get X amount of points, you put them where you want them, you build the type of character you want. We played off of archetypes, which were familiar to us in fantasy tropes. You know, monk. What kind of?
I was Arcane Protector, but more. It was like an Abjure. You could also.
I played a Paladin type character, and like the magic system is very open ended. Like, you know, there's a certain parameters, but within those parameters,
and it's
do
also
whatever you want.
It's uncertain, which is interesting. Like I like that the sort of swinginess of the effects of the magic. Sometimes the effect doesn't go off, or sometimes it happens to tremendous.
But you never run out of magic.
Yeah,
And
but
that-
it happens to tremendous.
That was the
effect.
next thing that I was going to say that I really particularly favor is that you don't get exhausted with doing your powers.
Yep.
And it speaks to a different type of character or a different type of game.
Yeah.
When it's like, all right, I'm going to get to keep doing this thing over and over again. You don't have to worry about that that resource management situation.
Yeah.
So the only downside that I saw from us playing is I feel like you need like a Boon and Bane cheat sheet in front of you while you're playing, and because there's so many options there.
Yep.
And also, like, you know, granted, you know, we didn't read a rule book and then come play this game. We just came and played the game. Well, you came, we played.
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit unfair on your part, but, you know, for us, like, the magic is so open ended. We're just like, well, I want to try this.
Yeah.
And you're either like yay or nay.
Yep.
And the game is very flexible for allowing a lot of different things. Like first edition, second edition, and even fifth edition Dungeons and Dragons. There's a lot of room for DM fiat built right into the game.
Yep.
I did definitely see, like, in your DMing style, some old school stuff. Oh, bad roll, this happens, or really good roll, this happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The dice know.
Yeah. And to your point, with the Kickstarter, we're definitely going to do a deck each for the Banes and Boons, so you'll have cards that when you're at the table, you can lay out little cards, cheat sheet cards.
Oh yeah, actually that would be great, a great addition. I'm really trying to think of some bad things to say about the game, and why I have you here. Well,
I'm glad you're having trouble. So I know, even if you managed to come up with a good one, at least you had trouble. That's good.
In all honesty, right? When we review something, we want to say, you know, the good, the bad, the ugly,
absolutely.
and give be fair to you guys out there.
Yeah.
I honestly can't think of anything that came up during the game that I was displeased with, or any rules. You know, from what I've seen so far, like, I haven't delved into a complete rule set, but from the gameplay, I enjoyed it from beginning to end.
Brian had some really lucky rolls with dice today. And
That's your complaint?
No, I'm not saying that.
His dice are weighted, and
That's that guy. He's never coming back.
in the first combat, I took a significant amount of damage because of a couple exploding dice.
Yep.
But Ryan was never in any kind of danger. You know, we managed to get Dave out of it, and we were fine. The second encounter, we had a little bit more experience with how the system worked, and what you said was a boss monster. We managed to get through with very little damage. I took 4 points of damage in the first combat, in the second combat, and like 14 in the first.
And the reason you took little damage was because of Bane triggers. Because you twice triggered stunned on the boss, which totally shut it down, and you had to do 10 over its defense to do that. So you had a lucky was the string that led to that.
I also had Ryan's protection that he put on me.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Which utterly shut down its attacks.
Well, because it apparently dealt 1 damage type.
Yeah.
So which is a thing that like we didn't. I wasn't aware of a thing that it was a thing that I could do, and I was like, can I do this thing? And they're like, oh yeah, this is the thing you can do. So,
sorry, learn as you go. Sorry for not.
No. I mean, it's part of the learning curve.
Yeah,
and then
it's what we asked for.
Right. And when we got into the third combat, you had the whatever it was that was attacking us. I'm guessing some kind of mage. It wound up having attacks that could attack all 3 of us all at once. And
I rolled well.
It really got to the point where Ryan and I just kept being knocked over because our hit points were so low, our toughness scores were so low, and you were rolling well.
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, there was literally a point where even if we were at full hit points, you did enough damage that you dropped both of us with a single attack.
Yeah. Which I think it's important. I'm curious you guys' perspective on this, but for me, like we talked about in the gameplay, there's no negative hit points, right? And so, you can be brought back, which is what happened. Dave brought you guys back with a heal roll that succeeded. But I like the idea of being able to take somebody out in one hit, but whether player or GM, like I feel like I missed that from other RPGs, and I think that's like cool because I think that's something that should happen sometimes.
Well, I mean, sometimes in narrative fiction, like how many times is it that somebody just gets takes a dagger to the jugular, or something like to that effect.
And that's a big part of my goal is that it be like narrative fiction that is like it tells a story that can happen, right?
The only problem is that if you have a DM who is unable to think on their toes, or if you happen to get into an encounter, an intelligence behind it, then is it just a total party kill, or is it a situation where something else needs to happen? And if someone's not good at thinking on their toes, it might just be like, well, sorry guys, you're all dead.
Yeah. So it crosses some weird boundaries and lines in the sense that some aspects of the game could be considered very simulationist in the sense that yes, you can one-shot someone because that's what can really happen, but then there's the other aspect where it is a little bit like 5e and 4e where it's resource management heavy during the encounter, but after the encounter not so much. You kind of reset.
What resource management do you mean by that?
Well, mainly your hit points, at this point, because they all come back after like 10 minutes of rest.
Sure. Yeah.
But that being said, your hit points are also, I guess they're high at first level, but I don't know how much they go up as you advance in the game.
Yeah, they don't, and that's the thing, right? In the game, you want to use stuff like the resistance boon that you've to up your defenses, or take armor mastery to increase your armor class.
So your hit points never go up?
Your hit points do go up. There are 3 attributes. Presence and I'm like drawing a blank on my own system. So presence, will, and fortitude. Those are the 3, and your hit points are just 10 plus 2x the combo of all of them.
Okay.
So every time you increase any of them, you get 2 more hit points.
Okay.
And there's a feat for getting 5 hit points.
So your hit points are always going to stay relatively
they're not going to go like crazy high. Because that's my preference, like, because of how it hampers narrative, I don't like
a slogfest,
a 300 hit point fight, you know what I mean? Like, that doesn't work for me, so like, I mean, if people don't like that, then they probably won't like the game, obviously. So and also, might as well know that.
Yeah, I mean, with the lower arc of the game too, with sometimes a lot of things that ended up happening where there's just like these whittle fests of 1 or 2 points of damage. And then, like, it didn't really happen at our table, but I'm absolutely sure it could happen with, like, a massive attack happening.
You're 70. If that had been an attack roll instead of something else,
they would have just murdered something out, right? Yeah, exactly.
But there's 1 in 8,000 chance of happening.
Yeah, exactly.
But there could have been, like, doing 30 or 40 damage at a shot.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's reasonable.
And we don't even know how that works. So how does dying work?
And that's what I was sort of leading toward earlier, which is that's why I got rid of the idea of negative hit points, which is that because you can sort of get taken out instantly, the idea is that you still are like in those last dying breaths when you go to 0 hit points, right? There's no death saves. So being at 0 doesn't actually automatically put you at risk of death at all. So there's that. And then the other element is it requires the GM to want to kill you because you roll a fortitude check, so you roll your fortitude attribute when you take a death blow, so to speak, right? So when you're already at 0, a follow-up attack triggers a fortitude, check. And if you fail that, then you die. But so then it's always in the GM's hand from a narrative perspective because you're never going to one-shot kill somebody unless you choose to attack them when they're already at 0. Yeah. That was my attempt to balance it. I don't know what you guys think about how that works out or whatever, but...
essentially it puts it on the GM of whether they want to end the story, because that's what they're doing at that point.
Sometimes it's integral to the story that you attack the character while they're down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree. Oh, you don't agree?
No.
He's been attacked while he's been down.
Last session, the creature dropped my character and then stomped on his feet. Or stomped on his face.
That's brutal, man.
That's I don't know whether you play 5th edition or not, but that brings you 66% closer to death. So
Yep. That's intense, man. Yeah.
He only stomped once, not twice. And then there was another time where a character happened to go down from monsters, and then they were pulling a chariot, so the chariot ran him over afterwards, so that nearly wiped him out as well.
So if it's again integral to the plot.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
If it's any consolation from, the longest running open legend campaign in history, the one that I've been developing the game with, I've only once had a situation where I kicked the asses of the players that I had to take. And in this case, I only actually took one person captive because the others were able to escape. But one guy got taken captive. But that's one time that I chose to take him captive rather than just deal the death blow. But other than that, it's actually never happened in 2 years of the campaign that I run. So it's funny because what you saw was you guys popped right back up because he healed you 16 hit points almost to full. That actually happens very commonly in the actual play of the game.
As long as you've got someone who's specialized in healing.
Yeah, exactly. When you take out the healer first, then you guys are in trouble. So.
Well, it also required a good roll.
Yeah, it did. It was not easy to roll that roll.
To get both of you. I could have consistently probably got one of you up every time, but I decided to go for the gusto and try 2 at a time.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's diminishing returns. You have to pick your battles. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I could see where a cleric, like a full-on dedicated cleric type character, super helpful.
Super powerful because the boon focus 2 thing, when your action becomes one increment faster, then you can heal as a minor, so you can still attack and you can heal somebody every turn, so that becomes super powerful.
Pretty much. Hopefully you guys, if you're watching this video, we probably should have said this in the beginning, you've already watched the gameplay to get a better idea of how things are.
Yeah, spoiler alert.
How the game kind of plays out, but you can go download the game for free, so you can look at the rules, you can check it out. I had fun playing it. Hopefully Brian had fun running it.
Yeah,
I can't speak for these guys.
I had a blast.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a good time.
And if it sucked, we would tell them. So
I appreciate that.
That was our worst fear. We had our whole Sunday gone for a lame game. Thank God
it did not occur. So
yeah.
Wow, I'm relieved.
So can you give us some more information about when the Kickstarter is occurring?
Yeah, so the Kickstarter is going to go live on October 18th. So that's a Tuesday. So look for it there. If you're ever unsure, you can just go to openlegendrpg.com. There'll be a banner, of course, that leads to the Kickstarter.
You guys got a Facebook page and all that good stuff as well. So.
Facebook/OpenLegendRPG. We're on Twitter. A great place if you're on Twitter to get in touch with me is Twitter. I answer questions from players all the time on Twitter. So feel free to reach out to me there. And we're on Instagram too. So actually have a wonderful friend Sydney who runs my Instagram for me, which is great. So there you go.
Cool. So with that, check it out. Check all the links out in the description below. While you're at it, leave some comments. What do you think? Have you gone and downloaded the game? Have you checked it out? While you're at it, like, share, and subscribe.
You can check out our Instagram.
You can also check us out over on nerdarchy.com.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.